The S&P 500 had a little bit of a hiccup here on the day, and there was some breaking news regarding what is happening from the Fed and the overall move that's going to be going on with the market, because now the big words of stagflation are being thrown out there, and we need to understand what this means for the market and ultimately where we are going. Now, I want to say right now, I don't think we're going to a full-fledged crash, but I will say I am welcoming the idea of any sort of dip. Well, we need to understand what has to take place and where you start to look for that said dip. Now, the first thing I do want to discuss is what is the biggest thing and probably the reason you came here is the idea of stagflation being mentioned. Now, Fed Kashkari, if you are unfamiliar, has been the hawk, if you will, for the longest time in the Fed. He's basically the guy that anticipates the worst possible scenarios. Now, again, it's also worth mentioning with the government shutdown, we're going to see if it stays like prolonged and this goes on and on, we're going to get less and less data over time because again, people won't be doing that job. So that's very important to understand. Fed Kashkari says some of the data that we're looking at is sending some stagflationary signals. And again, now, I will say the news will run with some of these things, which is very important to understand, but we need to understand a little bit more of what's happening. We know tariffs push up prices on goods and we're buying from abroad, and they can slow down economic activity. He also said he's bullish on both labor and AI long-term. However, it's still too early to say that AI has been impacting levels of employment, which that's very clear if you look at the layoffs from specifically the AI companies and major tech names. I do believe the nature of labor is going to change, but the ultimate effects of AI on labor market and the economy, Kashkari, let's not rush to judgment. So very important to understand what's happening there. He didn't go more into what's happening with stagflation, and he didn't say we're experiencing stagflation yet. He said that there is getting some early signs of those signals, but I will say this is going to heat up the conversation the next time Fed steps up to the mic, because again, they are going to hammer them with these questions. Very key to understand. Now, when we go into SPY, it's also worth mentioning, we'll go to the 1 hour chart here. You can see you're still above previous all-time highs established from the 23rd of September. So you still look fine. Because again, what's the basis of a bull trend, of continuation in the market, of a bullish market? It is making higher highs and higher lows. And so far, you have done that on higher timeframes consistently. So very important to understand that we're going to attack these levels, what to expect, where we're at, ultimately where I believe we're going. Let's get into it. Now, before I go too far, I do want to say right now, if you want to see what we're trading, how we're trading all day, every day, the link for Discord is down below. You get access to what we're looking at with futures first thing in the morning every day. We're also live here on YouTube for free every morning, 7:30 a.m. Central, so an hour before market open. You get Jordan's list, what he's looking at for leaps, the watch list we're looking at there, trade ideas, which this turned out to be a little bit of a loser for me today. I only took one trade on the day, really didn't do much at all. But again, I still think a lot of the crypto stuff looks really interesting. And then you go more into your scalps intraday, which was my only trade on the day, which was Reddit. Again, it ended up being a loser. But again, some days we won't see a lot of trades. Some days you'll see more trades. I'm going to keep that as transparent as possible. Profits, everything there as well. All this stuff mentioned inside Discord. So again, the link is down below. You can check it out if you want the starter plan and Premier Access. Again, starter plan to let you know you don't get access to voice chat in the mornings and you don't get access to the exact entries from these swing trades. Very important to understand. Let's get into it. So looking at SPY with what's going on. Now, the first thing I said a second ago was I didn't take a lot of trades today. And I want to make this very clear. So there's basically two ways in which I trade. And I want to make this really clear so people understand. If I'm scalping, getting in and out of the market, I primarily will trade futures, right? Which futures are very direct. And I want to show you like how I go about this really quick. So early in the morning, before I touch anything, I basically make a watch list or a roadmap for the day of what I'm looking for. So if we get over 25,196, I'm looking for all-time highs and price discovery. Under 25,196, looking for 127, 25,076, 24,97, which you can see all those levels mentioned here, and then also on the chart. So I didn't take any equity trades. It was all just based around futures. And you can see we're finding support in that 24.97, hitting all of our targets. So again, that's all I really did on the day. Didn't really get into equities and stocks. But even though you're seeing a little bit of a dip here on the day, and again, it's worth mentioning that you can't really get that bearish overall because again, you're still above previous highs here. You can see what you're doing, okay? Equities are still very strong. Like this is something that we have to discuss. For instance, Apple here making higher lows, right? Still same resistance, 257, 258, but making higher lows. Nvidia holding 184, your major level. AMD, even though I hate it, I think it looks terrible. Semiconductors still look good. AVGO, this could be taking a turn, I will say. This could probably, AVGO 200 SMA, this is probably one of the hot trades I'd be looking at right now, but under 332, very weak, and probably anticipate some downside, right? Important to understand though, but these names overall right now are still holding up for what it's worth, right? Microsoft, another big name, big player, right? A little bit of a pullback, but still holding up very well. And then we have to understand by holding up, people are like, oh, well, it's red on the day. I'm like, okay, well, let's take a step back. Let's understand where we were a week ago and where you're at now, and you're still much higher than those levels, right? So I could keep PanW still on the breakout, Tesla still sitting at 450. I mean, I can go on and on and on this list, right? I don't, Palantir, mid cap name, I'm becoming a large cap, but again, still very high. Like on and on, we can go down the list. Like Meta is a little bit of a pullback, but on the day it had a bit of a bounce, not terrible. Netflix bouncing on the day, one of the weaker names turning green. Good to see hit 1200. So I want to make sure I'm not being biased, right? So you can still see a lot of these names are holding up. So I want to hit the pause, hit the brakes on this idea that the market is crashing or dumping or this or that. Okay, we need to understand what has to take place for those things to happen. Okay, but I think it's important we also understand where we're at and where we're going. So when we look at that, equities are holding up. So what does that mean for SPY, QQQ, etc.? Okay, until you actually start seeing some breakdown, getting back below previous all-time highs, the downside trades really don't make any sense from my scope right now. There's a handful of trades which might be good for hedges, things like that. But as far as holding something overnight right now, it doesn't make a lot of sense unless you're hedging your account or hedging a position. It's just, it's pretty stupid in my opinion. Okay. Right. And so we look, you're still above those highs there on SPY, QQQ, still above those, actually holding those highs pretty perfect. So you look really good. Okay. Now, that being said, if you start to lose these levels or flip them, I think you could start trading for some downside. Now, I wouldn't start anticipating a major crash on the market. We're just there's no reason to get there yet. We're nowhere near there. So anyone pushing for that, like best of luck. Hope you make money. Good luck trading, but don't see it yet. Specifically, what I'd be watching is more here on NASDAQ. So NASDAQ, and I want to just take you back really quick. And I think past cases really can, help you out with what's going to happen, right? I don't think history completely repeats itself, but I think it's very helpful. Okay. So I was going to do a replay here, but you can see, this was the big level here on NASDAQ, 2497, right there. It was this kind of lows here where you broke below and you just shot down, you rejected, you shot down, big rejections. And now you're holding that level, as you can see there. So for me, I think this is one of the biggest levels you could be watching here on NASDAQ. So if you are to flip this level and break down, that's where I would start leaning for some tech semis to pull back. Okay. Until that happens, I think you're just expecting to bounce and you're just sitting in a range. So for me, when we're on this little bit of a decline, I'm not getting crazy with equities, right? I'm not like, okay, well, let's start pushing the agenda and going short on Nvidia here, short on Apple. It doesn't make any sense because you're getting a little bit of downside, but it's not that much, right? Even AMD here, like I liked AMD a lot, and it was like one of the trades I missed on today because I should have gone short. At open, I was like, dude, I texted Jay. I was like, I think I should go short. He was like, it's on top of support. Probably wouldn't do it. And I was like, whatever. Like, screw it. Right. Anyways, you ended up dipping from like 215 down to like 2095. Like, and again, I think you should have filled the gap. Like, that would have been the better move. So it's still worth mentioning, like, you didn't get the complete move, right? The options moved, but it just wasn't great. Not great price action. Nvidia here, you're not even testing 184. You got to like 184.5. You're bouncing. You're just all over the place here. Apple, you dip down, kind of just holding up. Google looks pretty decent, but just kind of getting the bump and run of your previous downtrend. Still no real follow through. Amazon's been a pretty weak name. You push up again off of 216.5. You're kind of rejecting here, but you're not really breaking down. Meta here so far in the day, you're getting back below like 710. I think I had the level of 712, the level 710. Jay actually corrected that level, but you can see right there, you're getting down below, but a $3 drop. So you can see there's no follow through really from the sellers here. And so again, you're putting yourself in a position like, okay, I want to take a trade because I need to make some money on the day. You shouldn't be taking trades because you need to fill a quota. Like, that's a bad mentality to have. In my opinion, the mentality should be like, I'm taking trades because I see a good setup. I see value in this trade. I see the risk, the reward makes sense. Logically, it lines up. If it's a loss, it's a loss. If it wins, it's a win, right? But that's why you take trades, because the odds are, you are at least assuming they're in your favor. Okay, you're not just doing it because, okay, well, I don't really like it, but I got to take the trade, right? So again, like you're seeing these setups, but you're just not seeing the follow through. And that's really my concern right now is, again, like I'll just wait till we get better action. Hopefully that is sooner than later. So again, things to consider of how I'm looking at this, and hopefully that helps you in some sense of what and why you should be looking at for the downside or the upside. Another thing out there is Bitcoin. So Bitcoin kind of rejecting so far from all-time highs, made new all-time highs at 126K, dipping back down. Again, I think these are, I'd be looking at opportunities here, right? Personally, some of the bigger levels I'd be watching right now here on Bitcoin. Number one, I'm going to tell you right now, is going to be right about here, basically 118,000 and then 115.7. Big levels I'd be watching there. I think if there's a risky play out there in the market that's justified by the reward opportunity, it's these crypto names right now. I think crypto is in a very, 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 very good spot. Really good spot. Now, could it end? Could you, pull back? Could you crash? Maybe you could. Anything can happen. But I'd be watching these names. BLSH, I've mentioned it a lot. BMNR, which again, BLSH needs to get above 71. BMNR, we're going for the breakout literally this morning, kind of pulled back a little bit. Coinbase, you already had a big trade. So again, getting another opportunity. If you get a retest of 350 on Coinbase, that could be a monster setup. MicroStrategy today, you couldn't hold your 200 SMA. This is why MicroStrategy is not my favorite. Like, the action is kind of all over the place, and it's not getting the best follow through with Bitcoin. So it's been really weird. It's one of the better names to trade for Bitcoin, but it's not in my top picks of things I like. I like Coinbase if I'm going for the more expensive play. BLSH and Bitminer, BMNR, like my cheap plays if I want to trade those. Okay. So again, where I'm at, what I'm thinking, kind of how I'm moving forward from this. Now, I also want to go back to this though, really quick, is you're not going to be you're not going to be able to predict what the Fed's going to say in some of these cases. I think there's concerns. I think this is a real concern, right? You're not going to be able to predict when the government shutdown is going to end either. Like try to predict what Trump's going to do and what this administration is. That's a wild card. So again, I wouldn't do that either. But it's important that you're just acknowledging the risk that is there right now and that you're understanding some of the news coming in, because at least there's some warning signs there for you right now. And I'm not going to pretend to have all the answers. So it's important that you do your own DD, you do your own research. And at the end of the day, you are accountable and self-aware of the decisions you're making in the market. And right now, I think those are the biggest things I'd be looking at. Now, again, SPY, QQQ are still holding their major levels. Nothing's changed there. You're literally sitting above previous highs. You start flipping 667 on SPY, I start to favor a little bit more the short-term downside. I really do. QQQ gets below 602, 603 basically. I start to favor some downside into 597, 596. That's how I would set this up. But as of right now, when you're seeing buyers just keep you off these supports and just bidding you back up, it doesn't. There's no reason to get confident in the downside yet, right? And on top of that too, IWM getting the break and retest still right now on the daily and the 4 hour. You break out coming back into 244. Really interesting, right? Even those names we think are overvalued, like Quantum, etc., right? Still holding very strong. So if you have any questions, comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. Discord, Twitter links down below as well. Have a good one. See you guys later for another update on the market or stock that I'm looking at. We'll have some more videos coming out. Have a good one, traders.